The rain had already soaked through Eliza Moore's coat by the time she pushed her cart through the sliding doors of Wallmert. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the kind that made everything look a little too pale, a little too empty. The store smelled of disinfectant and overripe bananas. Eliza wasn't in the mood to linger. It had been a brutal day at work, the kind where the printer jams right before the meeting. The boss glares at you like you caused the universe's chaos, and the coworker you can't stand gets all the credit. Groceries, home, shower, bed. That was the plan. But plans have a way of unraveling. She pushed the cart past frozen dinners, rows of sodas, towers of cereal boxes. And then she saw it, tucked between the home goods aisle and the electronics section. A small corner she'd never noticed before. A crooked sign above read, "Clearance, books and miscellaneous odd." Wallmert didn't usually carry books like these. She slowed, the wheels of her cart squeaking as she approached. The display was a mess. Dusty leather-bound volumes stacked haphazardly, their spines cracked and titles faded. Some had strange symbols pressed into the covers, shapes that shimmered faintly under the harsh white lights. And then she felt it, like someone was watching her. She turned her head casually, pretending to scan the shelves, but her eyes snagged on a figure standing a few feet away. A man, or at least shaped like one. His clothes looked wrong, outdated. A long, rain-darkened coat hung from narrow shoulders. His hair dripped onto the tile floor, though he left no puddle. And he was smiling. Not a friendly smile. Too wide, too still. Her stomach tightened. Other shoppers passed, oblivious. A kid ran by with a bag of chips, laughing. A woman argued with someone on speakerphone near the laundry detergents. No one looked at him. Eliza blinked hard. When her eyes opened again, he was still there, smiling. She tried to shake it off. Probably just some weird guy. Ignore him. Her hand hovered over the nearest book. The leather cover was cold under her fingertips, as if it had been sitting outside in winter air. No title on the front, just faint gold patterns curling along the spine. A flicker of movement. She glanced up. The man hadn't moved. He was staring directly at her now, rainwater sliding down his cheek like tears. Her throat felt dry. The store's lights hummed louder, or maybe her pulse did. She wasn't sure why she suddenly felt like she was standing on the edge of something, like picking this book was more than just buying clearance junk on a Thursday night. But she picked it anyway. The leather was heavier than she expected, the weight pulling down her wrist. As she dropped it into her cart, the man's smile, if possible, widened. At the checkout line, Eliza kept glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see him behind her, still dripping rainwater, still smiling. But he wasn't there. The cashier barely looked at the book as she scanned it, the barcode peeling at the edges. $4.99, she said flatly. Eliza paid in cash, shoved the receipt into her purse, and left without a word. Outside, the rain had eased into a mist. Her car was parked under the dim glow of a flickering lamppost. She loaded the groceries into the trunk, shoved the book on top, and climbed into the driver's seat. That's when she saw him again. Far across the parking lot, near the row of shopping carts, the man stood under the rain, head tilted slightly, watching her. His smile hadn't changed. Eliza froze, keys in hand. A car drove by, splashing water across the asphalt. When it passed, he was gone. She told herself it was nothing. Just some random stranger. People were weird. But as she started the engine, she couldn't shake the feeling that when she picked up that book, something had picked her back. The windshield wipers swiped back and forth, smearing raindrops across the glass as Eliza drove home. The book lay on the passenger seat, its cracked leather cover glistening faintly under the car's interior light every time she passed a street lamp. She told herself it was just a clearance find. Probably some old journal or one of those weird novelty books nobody wanted. But she kept glancing at it like it might open on its own. By the time she reached her apartment, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. Her building loomed against the cloudy sky, all brick and black metal fire escapes. Inside, the faint smell of someone's overcooked dinner lingered in the hallway. She dropped the grocery bags on the kitchen counter, set the book aside, and tried to shake off the unease clinging to her shoulders. That night, the apartment felt different. Eliza made tea, wrapped herself in a blanket, and flipped through the book. Most of the pages were blank, the few words scattered throughout, written in faded, looping handwriting she couldn't read. She frowned. Well, that was a waste of $5, she muttered, closing it. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Usually she could hear the upstairs neighbor pacing, or the pipes knocking when someone showered. Tonight, there was nothing but the low hum of her fridge. She turned on the TV for background noise, some late-night sitcom rerun, laughing at jokes she didn't hear. The first odd thing happened the next morning. She was rushing for work, toast in one hand, phone in the other, when her elbow clipped her coffee mug on the counter. She gasped as it tipped, but it didn't fall. The mug wobbled on the edge for a heartbeat, then slid back to safety as if nudged by invisible fingers. Eliza froze, staring. "Okay, lucky," she whispered, forcing a laugh she didn't really feel. At work, things got stranger. Jenna, the co-worker who never missed a chance to humiliate her, suddenly tripped over her own words in the middle of a meeting. The boss, usually quick to dismiss Eliza's suggestions, nodded thoughtfully when she spoke up about a new idea. She left the conference room with a small victory she hadn't expected, her phone buzzing with an approving message from the boss. "Great points today. Let's talk about you leading the project." Eliza stared at the screen, heart thudding. Was she imagining things? Coincidences stacked on top of each other until they didn't feel like coincidences anymore. That evening, back in her apartment, she caught it for the first time. A shape. She was brushing her teeth when she saw movement in the bathroom mirror. Just behind her shoulder, tall, narrow, and still. She spun around. Nothing. But her skin prickled like someone was standing too close. Over the next few days, it kept happening. Shadows moved when they shouldn't. Doors that she swore she'd shut stood open when she returned. Once, as she reached to turn off a lamp, she felt a shift in the air, like someone had walked past her. Yet nothing bad happened. In fact, her life seemed better. The next Monday, the office air felt thick with tension, even before Eliza walked in. Eliza wasn't in the mood for another battle with Jenna, but there she was, perched at her desk like a hawk, perfectly styled hair, eyes already locked on Eliza the moment she walked in. "Morning," Jenna said sweetly, her tone dripping with poison. "I hope you brought your A game. Big meeting today. Wouldn't want you fumbling things again." Eliza kept her expression neutral, though her jaw tightened. "Morning," she muttered, dropping her bag by her chair. This meeting was important. The boss had been hinting about assigning someone to lead the upcoming project, a big one, a career-changing one, and Jenna wanted it, badly. By the time the team gathered in the conference room, Eliza could feel her nerves fraying. She set her notes on the table, heart beating in her ears. The boss strode in, all sharp suit and sharper expression. "All right, let's hear updates," he said, flipping open his folder. Jenna was first. She launched into her presentation with the same confidence she always carried, voice steady, eyes glinting when she threw subtle digs at Eliza's past mistakes. Eliza felt her stomach twist. She's good. She's really good. Then something happened. As Jenna clicked through her slides, the projector flickered. A glitch? She tapped the remote. The screen froze, the words jumbling into nonsense symbols for a moment before clearing. Jenna frowned, hesitated, then stammered on the next line. She never stammered. Her voice cracked slightly. She tried again, only to lose her train of thought completely. It was unsettling. Eliza glanced toward the corner of the room. For a second, just a second, she thought she saw him there. The man, still, smiling. No one else seemed to notice. "Eliza," the boss said suddenly, "what about your proposal? The one from last week?" Eliza blinked. Yes, I have it here." She stood, palms damp, and began speaking. But as the words came out, something strange happened again. People were listening. Actually listening. Her boss leaned forward, nodding. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then he said, "Impressive. We might have our lead right here." Jenna's face flushed, tight with disbelief. By the end of the day, the email came through. "Congratulations, Eliza. You'll be leading the project." She stared at the screen, heart thudding. Jenna passed by her desk a few minutes later, voice tight. "Well, guess you got lucky this time." Eliza didn't answer. She couldn't stop thinking about the corner of that conference room, about the flicker in the projector, about the faint shape of a man no one else could see. That night, back in her apartment, she lay in bed, eyes tracing the shadows on the ceiling. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt watched. Eliza didn't sleep much that night. She kept waking to the creaks of her apartment settling, the faint hum of the refrigerator. Each time she opened her eyes, she half expected to see him there. Tall, still, smiling. But the room stayed empty. Morning came too soon. At work, the glow from her recent victory had already begun to fade. The big project was hers now, an opportunity she'd wanted for months. But with it came deadlines, expectations, people waiting for her to fail. She spent the morning organizing files for the first big presentation, her desk buried under folders and notes. The boss wanted everything perfect by 3 p.m. But around noon, she reached for the main folder, the one holding the finalized proposal, and froze. It wasn't there. She shuffled through the stack again, heart thumping harder each second, checked the floor, her briefcase, her email attachments. Gone. The folder was just gone. Her pulse roared in her ears. It didn't make sense. She'd triple-checked everything last night. It had been right there on the desk this morning. Now her boss was expecting it in 3 hours, and she had nothing. Jenna leaned on the edge of her cubicle, sipping coffee with a slow smile. "Something wrong, Eliza?" Eliza swallowed hard. "No, just misplaced something?" Jenna's smirk widened before she strolled away. By the time Eliza returned to her desk, she felt it again. That sensation, cold and crawling, like someone standing too close. She turned sharply toward the corner of the office. Nothing, but the air felt heavier. The presentation was a disaster. Eliza stumbled through half-finished notes, her boss frowning deeper with every slide. By the end, his disappointment was written across his face as clearly as the words on the screen. "Unacceptable," he muttered, rubbing his forehead. "I expected better from you." Jenna sat in the back row, eyes glittering with quiet satisfaction. Back at home, she stared at the book on her coffee table, its cracked leather spine catching the light. The apartment felt wrong tonight, the air thicker, shadows darker. She turned her head slowly and froze. In the corner near the window stood the man, smiling. Eliza's breath caught. "You," her voice shook. "You're real." The man didn't move, didn't blink. The smile stayed. She backed toward the kitchen, heart pounding, eyes locked on the figure. But when she flipped the light switch, the corner was empty. Only the slow drip of rain outside and the hum of the refrigerator remained. That night, she dreamt of shadows moving across her walls, of footsteps circling her bed, of that terrible, unchanging smile following her through the dark. When she woke, the feeling lingered like smoke after a fire. By morning, Eliza felt like she hadn't slept at all. Rain streaked the apartment windows in pale silver lines, the steady patter against the glass filling the room with a dull, relentless rhythm. Her head pounded. Work had been bad yesterday, really bad, but the thought of facing her boss wasn't the thing turning her stomach. It was him. The man. The figure that kept appearing where no one else seemed to notice. The thing that never moved, never spoke. Until now. She dragged herself through work like a ghost of her own, barely hearing the boss's stern lecture about professionalism and deadlines. She nodded at the right moments, promised to do better, but her mind wasn't there. It was back in her apartment, with the shadows, with the book, with him. By the time she got home, the sky was the color of wet concrete. She tossed her bag aside, hair dripping from the rain, shoulders tight with exhaustion. She didn't even turn on the lights right away, just stood in the center of the room, breathing hard, eyes adjusting to the dim grayness creeping through the windows. That's when she saw him. The figure stood in the corner near her bookshelf, exactly where he had been last night, as if he'd never left, still smiling, always smiling. Eliza's breath caught. "Who are you?" Her voice cracked. "What do you want from me?" For the first time since she'd brought the book home, the figure moved. Slowly, deliberately. It turned its head toward her, smile stretching wider than seemed possible. When it spoke, the voice was low, smooth, like water sliding over stones. "You welcomed me," it said. "When you opened the book, you opened the door." Eliza stumbled back a step, heart hammering. "The book? What are you talking about?" The smile didn't waver. "I came with it. We all do." "We?" "There are 3 of us," the figure said softly. 3 kinds. One kind brings kindness, one brings ruin, and some fall in between. Its grin widened as though savoring the words. "I," it said, "am the in-between." Eliza's skin prickled. The memory of the coffee mug writing itself, the co-worker humiliated, the lost file, all of it tumbled together like pieces of a puzzle snapping into place. You've been messing with my life," she whispered. The figure tilted its head. "Sometimes I help," it said simply. "Sometimes I don't." Her voice rose, sharp with fear and anger. "Why? What do you want from me?" The smile didn't break. "Nothing," it murmured. "I only stay until you tell me to leave." Eliza stared at the figure, heart thudding painfully. The figure slowly faded back into the dimness, the smile the last thing to vanish. Eliza sank onto the couch, trembling, as the rain outside turned the city into a blur of silver and shadow. I stood frozen in the middle of the dark hallway, the glow from the single overhead bulb flickering like it was struggling to stay alive. My pulse pounded in my ears. He was there, standing by the window again, the ghostly figure that had haunted every sleepless night. But now the expression on his face was different. Not angry, not accusing, sad. The shadows around him melted slightly, as though the darkness itself was softening. He looked at me, and for the first time, I didn't feel the weight of fear pressing down on my chest. Instead, there was a pull, a quiet urging for me to listen. His lips moved, slow, deliberate, but no sound came at first. Then, faintly, like wind slipping through broken glass, I heard him. "I didn't want to die here." His voice was cracked, brittle like old paper. "I was trapped," he said again, this time clearer, his tone edged with pain. They thought I did it, that I killed her. But I didn't. I tried to save her. The fire. The screaming. It wasn't me. The words hit me like ice water down my spine. The story unfolded in fragments, as though time itself was peeling away layer by layer. The woman who had died in the house, she had been someone he loved. They had argued that night, yes, but before he could make it right, the flames consumed everything. And when they found him among the ashes, with her body near, they had blamed him, condemned him. His spirit hadn't been able to leave because the truth never did. As he spoke, the room felt heavier, like the walls were absorbing his grief. His eyes glistened with a dim light that wasn't quite human, but wasn't empty either. I wanted them to know, he whispered, voice trembling now. I wanted someone to see, to tell them I wasn't the monster they made me out to be. I realized, standing there, that all the knocks, the whispers, the terrifying nights, it hadn't been rage, it had been desperation, a plea for someone to hear the truth buried under years of dust and fear. For the first time, I felt the weight of his loneliness more than my own terror. The figure began to fade then, slowly, like fog under sunlight. But before disappearing completely, he met my gaze with an expression that almost looked like relief. "Thank you," he said softly, and then he was gone. The bulb above flickered once more before going still, the room settling into a strange, heavy silence. But this time, it wasn't hostile. The house was different now. I sank onto the old couch near the cold fireplace, where I had just burned the book I got from the store, the same one I had stared at so many nights before, waiting for footsteps that never belonged to me. Now there was only the faint hum of the wind pressing against the windows. I should have felt relief, but instead, there was a heaviness in my chest. "They know now," I said softly, voice cracking a little. "I'll tell them. I'll make sure they know." When I finally stood to go, the air no longer clung to my skin like it wanted to keep me here. The door swung open with a creak that somehow didn't sound so menacing anymore. I looked back once before stepping out into the early morning light. The house loomed behind me, quiet and still, but no longer threatening. It was just a house now. As I walked away, the wind picked up, scattering leaves across the old front porch. For a moment, I thought I heard it again, that faint, almost imperceptible voice, soft, grateful, and at peace. "Thank you." And then there was only the sound of the wind, the world moving on, and me, finally able to do the same.